Oh, hello. Welcome back to another episode. This is episode 2. If you haven't seen the last one, go check it out. If this is your first time, hello, and I'm going to tell you a tale from my collection of stories that I wrote down when I did investigations. This one is about a cinema. It all starts 2 weeks before the investigation when my colleague Si, he took me to one side. Si reluctantly told me that he had awoken one morning and seen a ghostly woman stood by his bedroom TV for just a few seconds. He said to me, "Chris, I just want to tell you in case it's relevant, but I believe the next case will involve the spirit rescue of a female. Unless, of course, it was just a dream." Si would be the first person to tell you he's not psychic, but he felt strong enough to say to me, in case it's relevant, let's write it down. As in the previous story I told you, Si had become known as the Green Man. That's what they called him. For whatever reason, it was synonymous with him crossing spirits over. It was on a Tuesday night in August of 2013 that we came to the cinema after it had closed at 11:30. So it's a work night. We were all, coffeeed up and ready to go, but we didn't want to really go past one in the morning because we had work. The rest of the team went in. Si again pulled me to one side and said, "Chris, write this down, mate. It might mean nothing at all, but I've had the name Lily in my head all day, and I could see a date in my head, even though it kept reversing. Firstly, it was 1964, then it was 64, 46, 64, 46. He says, "It could be just my imagination, but it's best to have you write it down or something now, in case it's relevant." The manager of the cinema itself was called David, and he'd already clued me up on things that he had witnessed and things that the public had witnessed. But I'll bring them up as the investigation unfolds. Walking into the cinema, you have the kiosk area where you get your tickets. On one side you have stairs leading up to a small screen, screen 2, and a projection room. On the right hand side, past toilets, you walk into the main auditorium, screen 1. Now this is on like a stage area because it used to be a theatre previous to the cinema. And there's a fire escape to the left of the screen, which is just a completely concrete, boring, empty corridor, which does have access to behind the screen. Not just behind the screen, but to old rooms that used to be like the dressing room for the theatre, which are now, again, just empty concrete brick shells. Underneath the screen in screen 1, on the stage, I put my camera and I put a dictaphone underneath just to capture anything, because we were planning to go behind the screen to the oldest part. I walked through to the fire escape and placed a motion sensor, so if anything was coming towards us from the old part, then I hoped it would activate. There was also a cellar, which I went down myself and placed another audio recorder down there, even though we weren't going to get to investigate there tonight. But I was covering my bases and just had all the reviewing to do myself, and hoped I'd catch something. The team was me, Si, Sue, Kevin and David the manager. I started proceedings off by doing protection, and during the review of the protection, as I said, this time we're going to swap the energies to each other. Boom, there was a noise. But at the time, I hadn't heard anything in person. It was Si who asked out for whistling, knocking, lines of dialogue from a performance, and here's a clip of a whistle back that I caught. Now in the room we did hear a fluttering, which could have been an insect. I never got to the bottom of it. As fairly usual, we ask for knocking. We knock a little bit, hope it'll finish it off. But then that's when Kevin heard walking outside. Now I had a motion sensor in there, so there wasn't a person in there. In the room with us, the Gauss clicked once, so energies were increasing. This is all happening behind the screen, in the old part. As we're looking for temperature hits and asking for any activity to be shown, we did hear a thud or a bang, just out of sight as it were, not quite in the area, but near enough to hear. With our fingers on the glass on the Ouija board, it's just been still. You know, we're asking out, nothing's happened for a while. And then Si says, why did I just think cigarette seller? Si goes on to whistle in the hope that Spirit will respond. And then he also adds, I also feel like I should wolf whistle at the end, which is just bizarre. Now Sue is stood the furthest away from the exit. It's a dead end behind her, and we hear a shuffling, like footsteps. Kevin decided to name us all out loud in a hope to get some response. The Gauss crackled. Now the Gauss was the nearest to the exit, so blocking the exit in a way. So that's the Gauss going off near the exit, and the complete opposite behind us is shuffling of feet. We stood, fingers on glass, for nearly 20 minutes with no movement. I decided to prompt anything that was listening. I said, hey, do you know this guy? Pointing to David the manager. I hoped it would make them see we were kind of on their side, because David seemed to be very sensitive and he'd felt things before and was open to the idea of, you're welcome to be here, spirits. So I tried to bring him in. Then I'm saying things like, do you remember this building before it looked like it does now? The glass finally moves. I say, can you give us a name? The glass moves to 6. Okay. Anything else? 4. 64? 64, is that meant to mean something? I say. Yes, says the board. I ask, okay, what is the number 64 linked to? What is the relevance? And I make sure Si then took his finger off the glass, because the glass went to L, I. Si, take your finger off the glass. I know he said Lily to me. My mistake, in a way, was that I also knew this information, and yet I didn't take my finger off. But then, from my point of view, I think I'm not pushing it. The glass actually went on to spell LT, L-I-L-T, lilt. It was a tricky one, because I know that Si had said 1964, he'd said Lily, and I was like, maybe that's what they meant. Now, you know, you can have a go at me for jumping to conclusions, but I thought that was quite good. I did hear a ringing, and because all our phones were muted and airplaned, I never did find out what that ringing was, whether that was part of the building or something for our ears. I did go on to say, was your name Lil T, like Lily T? I don't know, bit of a long shot. However, the Gauss had a single click, and then the board spelt Telford as a surname. I then say to everyone, Si took me to one side and said, among other things, 64, Lily. I'll leave it up to everyone else to decide if that was decent or not, and we carried on. I discovered there were 3 spirits in the building at this moment. How many females are there? 3. Would you mind giving me one of the names of one of the other females? The board spells Christine. And the last lady's name? No. So Lil, what is your link to the building? C-I-G. Now, Sig, another hit for Si. Why did I feel like I want to say cigarette seller? Boom. So I ask, you were a cigarette seller? And the glass spins around and around the yes word, which we always take as being like a underlined, like a yes, absolutely. Now David the manager says, are you the spirit who I speak to in this building? The glass replies, no. I say, so how many spirits are in this whole building? We get the number 9. How many males? 3. So that's 6. 3 males, 3 females. What's the other 3? We find out that the lady David speaks to is the one we don't know the name of. Si says, did you and Christine know each other in life? And the board said yes. And how about the anonymous lady? Do you know her, or did you know her? No. Was she from an older time, perhaps? Yes. It turns out the anonymous spirit did not work in this building. Si asks, oh, well, is she related to this land? Gets a yes. Now, on my audio, I heard a female noise, like a, you know, you can tell it's female. This was after I'd asked if I should refer to this building as a theatre. That's when the noise came. We asked Lil what activity we might have seen being done by her. She spelt out jangle. We asked, of keys? Yes. Now David's like, oh, are they in my office? Obviously something had happened. So the jangling of keys was something that he had witnessed. The number 64 comes up again and we ask, what is it about number 64? And the board spells I died and circles the word yes. Oh well, how old were you when you died, if you don't mind us asking? 46. Yet again, a number that Si had collared me and told me before we entered. Now, David had already told me that there was times when he'd be in a cold spot, he'd see the breath in front of his face, or he'd suddenly be overcome with a sadness that wasn't his own as he walked round the property. Now, in this fire escape corridor, there had been public people watching a film, and they'd actually reported, hey, some people got up and walked through the fire doors down in that corridor. Now, knowing that they shouldn't just be hanging around in there, they came to the kiosk and said, you know, people shouldn't be in there. However, when staff went down, nobody there. And yet the fire escape hadn't been opened. There's nowhere for them to go, other than behind the screen. They checked, they weren't there. So David sort of says, well, did you ever show yourself during the film? Because that's what was reported. The Gauss click, the board says 4. Oh, you've done it 4 times? Yes. Can you name the film? P-O-T-T-E-R. Harry Potter. David says, did the Scottish woman try and find you, which was a member of staff who supposedly went looking? Yes. And what were you doing? It spells out selling cigs. David got asking about one of the other spirits. Turned out she was an actress. Turns out she'd commit suicide here. We asked if she'd come to the board. She refused. Now this was the anonymous one. It's Lil who confirms the spirit that is anonymous to us is the one who killed herself, and she's sad, and she makes David feel sad. Lil agrees that this actress feels she's stuck here. I ask, so would this lady like to leave? Yes. I then say, now we have a code word for this kind of thing. Do you know what it is? Green man gets spelt out. Now how do all different spirits somehow commonly know that Si is known as the Green Man to us? Well, to them, really. Now, even though the temperature readings were all the same, I did feel a sudden coldness all around the team. Si says, Lil, can you ask this ghostly female if she'd like to be passed over? And then just all the energy goes out the board. It's nothing, it's just us holding it for minutes. It's like she's gone to ask. Then back she is. Yes, it says. I put a torch on the table and say, if she's ready to move over, move the glass to the torch, and along the glass moves, hits the torch. Si requests Lil to step back and let this anonymous actress put her energy in the glass. Now David remembers on his first day, for some bizarre reason, the screens on the runners stopped working. So he had to go around the back, and that's where he first had his experience of this spirit. And he says, did you damage the curtains on the very first day of my work here, so that I had to come round the back and meet you? And she said, yes, I did. Now Si works on getting the trust of this anonymous actress. Si tries to find out if she knows a reason why she's here. And she says, sin. She's stuck here because suicide is a sin. Kevin says, oh, you're a Christian then? That's when Si went on to have the board energised, the glass spinning round and round and round, building up the energies, using our energies, and then he was ready. Pretty much boiled down, he asks if a light has suddenly appeared to the spirit's eyes. They spelt L-I-G-H-T. Si says, yeah, good. Asking her, well, what do you see? Is there anyone coming through the light? L-O-V-E-R. Oh, it's your lover. So it's a person that you trust who you can see. Yes. Si says, oh, well, walk towards him. No answer. So I say, or her, H-E-R. Okay, walk towards her. So there's just a total new cold surrounds us all at this point. The glass is moving around and around, sort of energising, and Si says, when you have gone through the light, take your hand off the glass to the spirits. Keep moving it until you've gone through, and the glass just grinds to a halt. It's just a different feeling, just like something is missing. So then we asked Lil, you there? Come back to the board. Lil comes back, starts moving the glass around. Lil, how many spirits are here now? 2. Has your friend gone? Yes. So it seemed we passed another spirit over on that night. We don't really know, we're not experts, it's just weird. It's like picturing it and making it happen, but we don't know how. We don't profess to know what we're doing, but it just seems to work. Si asks Lil if Christine, the other spirit, is talkative, wants to chat. No. It seems like these 2 women worked here together when it was a theatre. We find out that Lil died of illness. That's when the spirit went on to tell us that there's actually a man upstairs in the upper projection room for Screen 2. And he can sometimes be seen in the SEATS downstairs, the auditorium. Apparently he enjoys watching films. Now there was an old projectionist who died. David is saying, do I feel him in that room? Oh yes, you do, yeah. David is saying, did he work here before 1996? And the glass says 66/67. Did he die here? Yes, apparently on the upper floor. He was really happy here. He had a lot of fun working. This is when David, being the manager, says, look spirits, you're all welcome to be here. You're part of the building. I love having you around. We continue to ask for noises, banging, whistles. I did feel a breeze on my face, but that was about it. The spirits say they want nothing else from us. It's a late night for a work night the next day, so we start to close the board down, wrap up, take protection off. Now, my audio at this time hears a man go like, he's let out a sigh, and none of us did that. With that done, David showed us around the projection rooms upstairs and just said, yeah, we'll do this again, come again, because that was our first time there. And I actually ended up working there for a while as projectionist myself and behind the kiosk. So I just felt really at home there. I felt like I'd met the spirits anyway, so I was at peace when I worked there. And that was just one time when we met some spirits that Si had been influenced by, maybe. I just hope you like this story, and I hope you will help me further by leaving a like on this video. If you didn't like it, all you've got to do is press the dislike button twice. That should do the trick. And until we talk again, stay safe and subscribe and all that fancy business. Leave a comment. Either way, comments help me. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you on the next video.